Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello and welcome to episode 143 of the English with Kirsty podcast. And today's going to be a bit of a shorter episode because we had quite a long one last week. And I wanted to talk about a question that I'd been asked or something that came up in one of my lessons. And it was about grammar. So this is going to be a grammar episode. I try to mix it between tips episodes, vocabulary, grammar, so we get a lot of different things. But this is something that also sometimes native speakers do wrong. So if you are a native speaker, then it may still be of interest to you because I notice native speakers getting this wrong as well. But it's basically when we have a verb, we usually describe it using an adverb. So there's a difference between an adjective, which describes something, and an adverb, which describes how something is done. So you can be angry because that's describing you, you're angry, but you can slam the door angrily. That's how you did it. That's how you slam the door. So that's the difference between adjectives and adverbs. The thunder that I've just heard outside, and I hope doesn't come back until I finish the podcast, was loud, but you can be playing music loudly. So the thunder, I'm describing the thunder, that's loud. The music, I'm describing how it's being played, and it's being played loudly. So most of the time people get this difference once they've seen the pattern, but there are a couple of verbs that are exceptions to this rule. So rules are good because they help you to learn how things work, but there are always going to be some exceptions. And an exception that seems to cause problems for people is when we're describing things that have something to do with our senses. So looking and seeing, tasting and feeling, and how something sounds. So when we talk about these kind of things, we're actually still describing the thing, because if you say something tastes delicious, we're using a verb and it's talking about our sense of taste, but actually we're describing the thing and how it tastes to us. So it's not the meal doing the tasting, it's us tasting the meal and we think it's delicious. So even though we have a verb in this sentence to taste, we don't follow it by an adverb because we're not describing how the thing is doing the verb. We're describing how it appears to us or how it tastes to us. So if you're using a verb like taste, you use an adjective to describe the thing. So it tastes disgusting or delicious or amazing, whatever it is. It's not disgustingly, deliciously and amazingly. And the same thing happens when you're talking about our feelings. So for example, you've had a long day at work and you feel tired. You're describing an adjective to describe your mood or your feeling. You don't feel tiredly because even though feel is a verb, we're talking about your emotions here, and so we're describing you and your emotional state. So you feel tired, you feel happy. So you don't feel happily, you feel happy. You feel great, you feel miserable, you feel excited. So again, it's not excitedly, miserably and all this kind of thing, because you're describing you and your emotional state. So when you use feel, you follow that by an adjective in the same way as you do with taste. Look as well. Look can be followed by either an adverb or an adjective. So look, you have to be a bit more careful. And here you're deciding, are we talking about how somebody is looking? So look carefully at these examples. I want you to look at them and I want you to do it in a careful way. So look carefully is right because I'm describing how I want you to look at the sentences. But if I say something looks great, then I'm not describing how I'm going to look at it or how I want somebody else to look at it. I'm describing it, the thing that we're talking about. So yeah, that looks great. You wouldn't say that looks greatly because that would be very odd. And if you're talking about somebody who looks beautiful, you wouldn't say they look beautifully. They look beautiful because you're describing them. They look beautiful. So it depends if you're saying how somebody should look at something or how something looks. And if you've got a sentence with like it looks or you look, then chances are it's going to be an adjective that you need because you're describing what something looks like or how it looks to you. So with look carefully, again, that is right because I'm telling you how to look at the sentences. I'm not describing these sentences look difficult, for example. And we do the same with, well, to sound is easier as well. It's like to taste and to feel. So that sounds interesting. Yeah, it's the thing that you're telling me. I think it's interesting, so that sounds interesting. Sounds like a good idea. So yeah, that sounds good. That sounds interesting. That sounds cool. That sounds terrible, or whatever it is. Again, it's not the thing doing the sounding. We're describing the thing that you've just told me or that I've just heard. So again, with sounds, you don't say that sounds terribly, that sounds interestingly. It sounds terrible, sounds interesting. So these are just a few examples of when normally the rule would be you always follow, if you're talking about a verb, it needs an adverb. But here, especially when there's something to do with feelings or our senses, our 5 senses, then you need to think then, are we describing how we are doing the thing or what the thing is like? So if you're saying how something tastes, you're still describing the thing. And even though you've got a verb in your sentence, you're describing this noun, this thing that you're eating. So you need an adjective for that. So that's just a short explanation, but it's something that people often say. They say they feel badly, where really they feel bad. They don't feel badly. They feel bad because it's the same as saying I feel happy. I feel hungry. You don't say I feel hungrily, do you? You say I feel hungry. So that was one of the ones that made me think about it. But then I began to see all these other patterns with other verbs that have something to do with our senses. So I thought I would bring that as a grammar explanation point. And if you have any other questions about grammar, then you can ask them on the show notes page, which for this episode will be englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 143. There is a place on there where you can write to me, or you can just send an email to podcast@englishwithkirsty.com, and Kirsty, Kirsty, not Christy. So if you send that to me, I will get your question and try to answer it as best as I can. And if you want any more in-depth help with grammar, then again, I have my grammar modules. That's a paid course, but I can go through either one or more of the modules that you need. You can put together your own course, or you can do the whole course if you need more specific help with grammar. Because grammar, if you do understand how it works, then it can really help you to create better sentences and to avoid mistakes, because you know the rules. And if you know the rules, you can follow them. If you don't know what the rules are, then it's like playing a game when you don't know, like playing football when you don't know what's allowed or what isn't, then you're not going to win. So yeah, that's my quick episode today. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.